So today I'm going to show you how to prep a subwoofer basket and motor assembly for a new Recone. This will include cleaning the subwoofer, getting it prepped for a new surface to adhere to for the new Recone, cleaning out this gap, and then removing soldered on terminal leads. So basically getting this ready for a drop-in Recone. So we're going to go through all the steps on how to do that. For what you're going to need, we'll start out. I'm going to use a Dremel with some different attachments to help grind down and clean the surface. Also some sanding paper, and a razor blade, knife with a razor blade. Also to do some maintenance on the assembly, I'm going to use a ratchet for this particular speaker to tighten down the nut on these terminal leads on both sides, because those are a little loose, and also a screwdriver to tighten down on this particular model the screws that adhere to the motor assembly, the basket to the motor assembly. And then also I'm going to use some tape. Masking tape's almost better, so I'll go and get the blue masking tape to cover up this voice coil gap while you're working, because you're going to make a big mess. You don't want to get too much more debris than there is. Then these business cards are going to be used to help clean this also. I'm going to use tape, sticky side out, and run the card through the gap. I'll show you how to do that. What also helps to have is compressed air. If you don't have any air compressor, you can buy an aerosol, not aerosol can, but like a compressed air can, like at Staples or something, and it'll have a little spray nozzle on it and everything. You can use that to blow out the debris from there. And also helps to have a vacuum, have a shop vac, helps suck out anything. But the biggest way to clean that out is with sticky side out tape and a piece of paper or business card. But we'll go through all that. So that's basically all the stuff you're going to need. I'll lay down this paper towel to help protect the back side of the speaker from scratching and make it a little easier to spin around and keep my parts from being lost. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to do when you're getting ready to prep the speaker for a Recone is cover up the voice coil gap. Because you don't want any more debris to get in there than it already has. It doesn't make sense to clean it before you start, because you never know. But the best way to help yourself is covering it up. So I'm going to use this tape, and we'll go ahead and show you what that looks like when I'm done. Alright, so I got the tape done now. Making a good seal, keep everything out of the gap. So the next thing I want to do on this particular speaker is remove these terminal leads. I'm just going to solder those off. And it helps to have a pair of needle nose pliers and of course your soldering gun to melt those off. While you're melting on those, you just use the needle nose and pull it off. And then there's a little hole in there where the wire goes through. You want to try to clean that out the best you can. Try to get the solder out of there. And you could try to wipe it off. It might be a little too hot though. But usually if you're good enough with the soldering iron, you can kind of manipulate the solder away from the hole, and it kind of wants to anyway. So let's see if I can't get a camera angle to show you that. Okay, this is not a this doesn't have a very good focus, but I'll do the best I can to try to show you. So right here are the little terminal leads, and then this is the terminal itself, and then the solder is kind of on the front side, soaked into the terminal lead. So what you're going to do is take your pliers, try to grab the lead. It's hard to do with one hand. Alright, so get the lead, pull your soldering iron in, and let it sit there and start heating up that solder. It'll go pretty fast once it's heated up, and just gently pull out. And then you can see there's the hole right there where the lead's supposed to go. It already kind of naturally cleans itself as you go, so you don't have to take too much time to try to clean the terminal. So let's sit there, heat it up, just gently wiggle. There you go. Just double check that hole's cleaned out. As you can see, this isn't a very good focus, but you can see that they're cleaned out versus when they had the leads. But they're not so cleaned out. So that's basically the first thing you do. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side and then show you what I'm going to do next. Alright, so I have all the old connections removed as we went over a second ago. And so now I'm going to tighten up the terminals just to double check they're all nice and tightened, just to kind of double check they don't move around. I'm trying to hold the basket so it don't spin. Doesn't need to be super tight, but just enough to keep those from moving. Alright, so, and then the other thing we got to remember to tighten, which is more important, is these screws that adhere the basket to the magnet stretcher, the motor stretcher. They shouldn't have come loose. Oh, this is magnetized, so it's kind of tough to move around. They shouldn't have come loose, but you never know. I'm going to go ahead and do that so I can hold the basket without having to hold the camera, and then we'll go from there. I just got done tightening those. Believe it or not, they did need quite a bit of tightening. Being this is a 10-year-old speaker, it's had a lot of time shaking and doing bass, and these screws eventually they get a little bit loose, and I was able to get a quarter turn out of a couple of them. So really got to crank those down pretty good. Make sure that doesn't move. I mean, it's not going to break you down probably, but it's a good time to check on this stuff. So the next thing I'm going to probably do now is start cleaning the spider landing and also the landing for the surround where it connects to the basket. And that's pretty much the biggest deal of work here, so it's going to take the longest. But that's where the razor blades come in and the grinders and stuff. So I'll get a few shots of that as I'm doing that. I'm going to start on where the surround meets to the basket. I'm going to start out with my razor blade and get the majority of this. You can see I'm just kind of going along. Got to be very careful with this because if it slips, you don't want to be kind of in the path of where the blade's about to go. So stand away from it, keep your hand down. Because you don't want to hurt yourself. So with the blade, you'll probably get it down to looking like that. But now we can start seeing the aluminum basket, and it's a fairly flat surface too once you get it down. So with a razor blade, you just gotta be careful and not try to make a lot of gouges. It's fairly stable material, so you shouldn't make any gouges in it. But you'll get looking more like this. I'm just gonna keep on going around, and then we'll move on to the next step here in a minute. So at this point, the shop vac comes in handy to start cleaning some of this stuff up. So we'll go ahead and do that. So So it's a little bit better of a surface. That's about the best you can do with the razor blade though. So next I'm going to start going over to my little Dremel here and start seeing how that works. So I started grinding the surface down, get it clean. So I'll let you watch as I do that. Not a very good angle to see, but either way, I'll show you. So we got the top ring done, all shiny. What I had to do was just spend a lot of time using the Dremel, sanding away at that. And I used razor knife, cutting those edges really good along here, and also used some heavy grit sandpaper, and that really worked well. And then after that I used the a wire wheel, or you could even use sandpaper, but you want to rough up the surface here a bit, so there's a lot of little scratches in it, so that it creates a porous surface to bond the new adhesives when you get to your reconing. So that's where we're at right now. Next step will be going down and starting on this spider landing, getting that all cleaned up, and so I'll check in when that's ready to go. I'm going to start cleaning this spider off. I'm going to use this razor knife, start cutting it down. Once you've gotten the whole spider off, then you can come over here and start working the adhesive. Pulling it down to bare metal. Just going to do that all the way around and get it all cleaned up. Alright, so now I'm all done. This basket and motor assembly is 100% ready for a new recone. I've gone ahead and already cleaned the gap. I'll do a separate video on how to do that because I'm not reconing the speaker today. So I'm going to make sure to reclean the gap before I do that. So I'll do a full video just for that. So this video basically was just how to clean and prep the basket and the terminal leads, and just double check that everything's tightened down and ready to go. So going over the steps: number 1, cover up the gap before you do any work. Number 2, check all your terminals and screws and everything that needs to be tightened down that can eventually come apart. Right here I tightened down this nut, and then I checked all these screws. After that, I went ahead. You can go either way. You can start cleaning the spider landing or the landing for the surround. On both, you can use the same procedure: razor knife, sandpaper, a little grinder, Just the biggest deal is trying not to gouge the aluminum because it's fairly soft metal, but it won't be too hard to maintain. And then once you've gotten that cleaned up, you want to use some heavy grit sandpaper or a wire brush or anything that will kind of scratch up the aluminum, kind of make it a porous surface, which will be very good for adhesion when you put your soft parts in. So once that's all taken care of, you can go ahead and remove your tape, clean out the gap, and then it'll be ready for a new recone. And then if you haven't cleaned your soldering terminals, that you can do that at any time, as long as the gaps are covered up, so you don't get parts in there. But yeah, this is the Rockford Fosgate Punch HX2, ready for a recone. Everything's in really good shape too, so can't wait to get the soft parts in the mail. So I'll be doing a video on how to clean the gap and then also the recone process. So thanks for checking it out.